Gran Turismo Racing. And no, I'm not talking about your favorite video game. I'm talking about the 3 words synonymous with performance, passion, and price, earning a spot in fantasy car lists and garages worldwide over each of its generations. The Nissan GT-R is an iconic supercar killer at a really good price point, but the new R35 is thicker than clay. The R34 is pretty pricey, and well, we can't have them here in America. The R33 is, well, it's just the middle child, let's leave it at that. But thanks to the 25-year-old import rule, the R32 GTR is just right. Whether you seek 4-digit horsepower figures, or just want a sensible but really fun to drive daily driver, the early model Godzilla has you covered. So hit subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and without further ado, let's find out why you should buy an R32 GTR right now. Now, before you can appreciate a GTR from a performance standpoint, you should probably learn a little bit about its history and why it was made. It might be hard to imagine a Godzilla that's not a twin-turbo fire-breathing monster, but it actually started from some pretty humble beginnings, and a bit of a rocky start. You see, the R32 GTR isn't actually the first generation GTR. It's the third, or fourth, or second, depends on how you really want to lay it out. The R32 GTR's predecessor, the Kenmari, named after Ken and Mary who were in an ad for it on TV in Japan, was only built in 1973, and only 197 were ever made. You see, with the gas crisis of the 70s, the Kenmari Skyline was kind of a flop, and the GTR name seemed to disappear forever. But 16 years later, in 1989, Nissan blew the cobwebs off the GTR badge and unveiled the R32 GTR. And GTR was back, and in a big way. Nissan had revived the GTR name to build a race car. And not just any race car. It had to be capable of dominating Group A racing in Japan. And thanks to homologation, Nissan needed to make at least 500 copies of that car to qualify the car for the race. And it was that 500 car production that largely is responsible for the GTR coming back. And lucky for us, Nissan didn't stop at 500 examples. They made over 40,000 R32 GTRs over its lifespan, and each one a 2-door, 5-speed all-wheel drive monster. Now there are a few special examples like the Nismo, the V-Spec, the V-Spec 2, and the N1, but we're not really going to go into those in this video. What we're going to be talking about is the base model R32 GTR, because those other ones are very rare and very expensive, and you probably, being an ideal fan, not shopping for one of those. We're talking about $30,000 R32s here, and that is the base model. And at that price point, this is the best bang for the buck GTR I think available on the market outside of the R35. Now the R32 GTR was definitely aimed at a younger audience with a serious horsepower addiction, but despite its race car DNA, from the look of it, it's actually kind of subtle. Unlike the flashy, future tech, big body monstrosities that the R34 and R35 became, the R32 is far from over the top, and that's kind of what makes it so damn special. It's unassuming, it blends in, it hides all of its raw power and cutting-edge tech beneath subtle contemporary body lines, which, when we're talking about a $30,000 used car, might be a bit of a turnoff. If you're more style over substance, the R32 GTR might not be the car for you. Get yourself like a Lancer Evo or something. But if you ask me, the subtle and sedated look of the R32 GTR is exactly why it's the best looking generation. Well, modern generation at least. Now, when you go shopping for your ideal R32 GTR, you're probably gonna end up with a gun gray metallic one, since over half the cars made were made in that color. But if you're out there looking for the rarest and most unique GTR, you're gonna wanna get one in grayish blue pearl. Good luck, there was only 141 of those ever made. And that is a damn shame because it is beautiful. Why are the rarest things always the most beautiful? Like me, there's only one of me. As for visual changes over its lifespan, in 1991 they did some minor tweaks like updating the headlights and improved some safety, but a little weight was added in the process. If you are able to get one of those rare special editions like the N1, you'll be getting some additional aero modifications. But these are actually pretty easy to source for your base model GTR if you don't want to spend money on that special edition. All told, the R32 GTR is just so 90s looking. As a kid who grew up in the 90s, that's what makes it so special to me. Now, the subtlety of that exterior also definitely applies to the interior, if not even more. Now, most of you probably know this, but the R32 GTR was not sold in America. So if you're buying one and you're a member of the Bald Eagle Nation like me, you're gonna be sitting on the other side of the car when you drive it. So, be ready for that. Also be ready to be very unimpressed when you're sitting inside of that R32. It is pretty basic, looking essentially like a base model Nissan 240SX that someone sprinkled some race car engineering dust on. It's got cloth cloth bucket seats, 90s shiny plastic everywhere, and a few knobs and buttons that'll have all of your friends asking you, "You spent $30,000 on this?" Now, what also won't help is there's basically no garages in Japan. These cars all sat outside for pretty much their entire lifetime, so you can expect that cloth to be faded, that dash to be cracked and bubbling. All the little plastic bits are going to be in pretty rough shape. And with actual mileage of a GTR being really hard to confirm, the wear and tear on the interior is actually going to be your best bet of knowing how old your GTR is. But once you get past all of that drabness, that Spartan interior means that there's almost nothing separating you and the driving experience. Only some thin cloth and plastic sits between you and that snarling monster. The city-crushing beast. The kaiju under the hood. The RB26 DETT. Once you pop the hood of an R32 GTR, subtlety is done with. One peek at that shiny valve cover, those 6 independent throttle bodies, and the twin turbo setup, you will immediately realize this is no Sentra. You'll be basking in the beauty of the RB26 DETT. This 2.6 liter straight 6 produces 276 horsepower officially, but real-world results are closer to 310. Peak horsepower is made around 6,800 RPM, a good bit under its 8,000 RPM redline, and you're getting 260 foot-pounds of torque out of this as well. In terms of power, that is pretty much on par with the Lancer Evo I talked about earlier or the 22B STI. But what really makes that RB26 so special? Well, for one, it has a cast iron block, forged pistons, and aluminum alloy cylinder heads, which is all fancy car nerd speak for big power, tons of boost. In stock form, the 2 Garrett T25 turbos produce around 10 to 14 PSI of boost, sufficient for 109 horsepower per liter, which is impressive but not enough to terrify your passengers. Change out the ceramic blades in those turbines for some steelies, give the car a good tune, and you're looking down the door of 400 horsepower, like that. But the RB26 still has more to give. You can then swap out those 2 tiny snails for 1 big turbo and get closer to 600 horsepower of an RB26 on mostly stock internals. Now, once you start pushing numbers like this, maintenance is going to go through the roof, so be ready for that.
Things are going to be okay.
So all of this leads up to the question, how does the R32 GTR drive on the road? There are few things in life more satisfying, and perhaps terrifying, than an all-wheel drive launch in a Nissan GTR, especially in the R35, which cracks the 0 to 60 in just 3.2 seconds. But the R32 GTR is still no slouch. Coupled with its manual transmission, its AutoTEMPEST all-wheel drive system, and its somewhat lightweight 3,100-pound curb weight, the R32 GTR might actually be the most exhilarating to drive generation of them all. Spool up those turbos, drop the clutch, and hold on, because that granddaddy GTR is going to get you to 60 miles per hour in just 5.2 seconds, which is as quick as the first generation NSX, or a new Ford Explorer? Yeah, okay, so that's not exactly the most impressive 0 to 60 time, but keep in mind this car is older than most of you watching this.
Okay, boomer.
And also keep in mind, this isn't really important. The R32 GTR was not designed to be a quarter-mile monster. It was tuned for the racetrack and Japanese twisty mountain roads. The multi-link suspension, limited slip differential, and all-wheel drive system all add up to tons of grip. And here's why. Starting with the AutoTEMPEST. Nissan's advanced total traction system engineering all-wheel drive. Nissan's Advanced Total Traction Engineering System for All-Terrain, or ATEZA for short, which I'm probably saying that wrong, let us know down in the comments, whatever. This is a similar design system to the Porsche 959. A wet multiplate clutch is electronically actuated inside the transfer case, determining how much torque is sent to the front wheels. You see, the R32 GTR is predominantly rear-wheel drive, until the system detects it slipping, and at that point the system can push up to 50% of its power to the front wheels. Another much maligned piece of technology that the R32 GTR has in its pocket is the Super High-Cast system, which is just a fancy name for 4-wheel steering. The Super High-Cast system was designed to increase stability and maneuverability through corners by using a hydraulic system that can turn the rear wheels up to 1 degree in each direction. At least, that's when it was working properly. Most GTR owners go through failures of the High-Cast system and just end up removing it. Although this is not really that bad of a problem on the car, it does lead us to our next section, which is reliability. It is no secret that the RB26 DETT is one of the most tunable engines of all time. Over-engineered and capable of 4-digit horsepower figures, the sky is the limit with the RB26. But of course, as with all engines, the best way to keep your GTR reliable is to leave it stock. And that's going to be where shopping for an R32 GTR here in the States in 2020 is going to be a little more complicated. You see, you want to find one as stock as possible, which is probably going to be pretty hard. With how old they are and their racing heritage and how likely they are to be tuned from Japan, you're probably going to find one with a little bit of seasoning sprinkled on top of it. With its stock 276 horsepower, the RB26 is an almost bulletproof power plant. But a motor is a motor. There's explosions going on inside, stuff breaks. Here's what you need to look out for. The engine's main pitfall is usually the oil pump, which with a lot of miles and hard driving can lead to oil starvation, which, like any starvation, is not really great. So keep an eye out for an upgraded oil pump, likely from the N1 model, or get ready to buy one yourself. If possible, see if the car's boost has been raised. And if so, check to see if the ceramic turbine blades in those turbos are intact. They tend to shatter once you push a little power out of them. And you do not want to have a naturally aspirated GTR. Just not as fun, let me tell you. Definitely take it for a test drive and check that all the gears shift smoothly, as synchros have been known to fail in these transmissions. And last but not least, it's an interference motor. Check that the timing belt has been replaced regularly on schedule, or again, expect to do it yourself. All right. So what does that all mean? Well, if you're old like me, you remember that movies used to be rated on a thumbs up or thumbs down. So that's how we're gonna go with this. For the R32 GTR's reliability, I give it 2 thumbs up. It's relatively easy to maintain. The block itself is damn near indestructible, and parts are pretty common and cheap to get, even here in America. Now, as for how it drives, the R32 GTR is a Japanese motorsport icon. And driving the street car, all of that history and performance-focused engineering that Nissan poured into it really becomes apparent. Downshift into second gear and hear that RB26 snarl under the hood, tackle a tight turn and feel all of the grip that all-wheel drive system has on offer, and smash that skinny pedal and listen to those 2 snails pump a bunch of air into 6 cylinders. You're sipping on 90s automotive bliss. This is a true driver's car. No frills, just you, a relatively light car, and a big honking motor. It's almost kind of American in that way. If you're an enthusiast like me, driving an R32 GTR has gotta be like a life-changing experience. And for that, I give it 2 thumbs way up. Now, will you be as happy about walking out and looking at your R32 as you will be driving it? Let's talk about that. Visually, the R32 is the dictionary definition of subtlety. In stock form, you probably wouldn't even notice it passing you on the highway, especially since they're all basically gray. The only hints that there's something special about this car are those 4 round taillights in the back, a mild little spoiler, and those bulges around the wheel arches. So with all that, the R32 isn't going to get you much attention at a red carpet gala, but it will get you a lot of attention from car nerds. Pull up to any gas station, step out of the wrong side of the car, and get ready for some kid who grew up on anime to come up to you and ask you a ton of questions. That's up to you whether you like that kind of attention or not. I do. I like talking to people. Now, if you're like me, you see every car as a platform to make something uniquely yours. And the R32 GTR is one beautiful sheet of canvas. There is a lot you can do to an R32 to really make it stand out. From a wide body kit, big old wheels, a drop vent hood, a GT wing, canards, etc., you name it. This is a Japanese tuning car that people have been modifying for decades. There is essentially unlimited parts available to make your R32 uniquely yours. And as beautiful as I personally think the R32 GTR is, when I think of curb appeal, the R32 has very little of that out of the box. So I'm gonna give it like 1 thumb up just because you'll get some attention from other car enthusiasts. Now, I know you're buying an R32 GTR because race car, but what is it actually like to own one? Is it practical? First things first, are you American? Probably, like 60 or 70% of our audience is American. Well, guess what? The GTR is an import. It's right-hand drive. So say goodbye to going through the drive-thru if you're a single loser like me. Prepare to feel really weird driving down left-hand drive roads. Prepare to parallel park up against a wall and have to climb out your passenger door. Prepare to have cops get frustrated when they pull you over and they walk to the wrong side of the car. Yes. Right-hand drive is JDM and cool, but it's also kind of a pain in the ass. And yeah, it has back seats, but they're tiny. It does have some moderately okay trunk space. None of this really stops anybody from daily driving an R32 GTR. What about miles per gallon? Well, if you're not too obsessed with the skinny pedal, you might make around 19 miles per gallon, which isn't too bad for a car like this, especially coming from the 90s. But if you have a heavy foot, that engine is going to suck down gas and you're going to be buried in gas station receipts. So, is the R32 GTR practical? Well, it's not impractical, but it sure as shit ain't no 4-door crossover. What it is a really good sports car that is daily drivable, as long as you're okay with getting in on the wrong side of the car. Altogether, no thumbs down, no thumbs up. We're just gonna give that one right in the middle there. And now the most important part. This is ideal. We're all about one thing here, value. Is the R32 GTR a good value? As more R32 GTRs hit our American shores, it's become apparent that its value far outweighs what its chassis and engine suggest. It is an automotive icon with unlimited tuning potential, trending appreciation value, and is emblazoned with 3 of the most respected letters in automotive history. It's no small honor. But if you want one of your own, you're gonna have to act pretty quickly. In the last few years, the secret's got out, and the market has kind of skyrocketed, making them a little harder to afford for the average automotive enthusiast. Right now, you're looking at spending around 30 grand for a good, clean example, and a lot more if you're looking at a rare or limited edition. Now, while the R32 GTR wasn't particularly rare, it is getting pretty long in the teeth, and good examples are getting harder and harder to find. Think Nissan 240SX. So, if you buy one today, appreciation and value going up might actually be in your future. And there is no better value than a car that actually earns you money over time, right? Now, what about insuring the car? For a 25-year-old male driver with a clean history, we found that insurance would cost around $175 a month, roughly 7% of the car's total value in a year in premiums, which isn't too bad. And the best bumper-to-bumper coverage we found for this car was through Hagerty. But be warned, they require some deep pockets for your insurance premiums to be covered. But feel free to shop around to find the best value for you. All told, for the money you spend, you get a hell of a car that might actually appreciate and won't cost you your life savings to run on the road. That is a double in my opinion. Now, if you want to buy an R32 GTR like tomorrow, like I do, I really want to buy an R32 GTR tomorrow, so please watch this video a lot, buy a shirt, buy a Skyline shirt, they're cool, and it'll get me an R32 GTR. Which one should you buy? Well, since you're asking us, this is the one we would choose. It's a 1991, so it has the update, with just over 65,000 miles, which, you know, is true, isn't true, we don't really know. And of course comes in that iconic gunmetal gray metallic. Bonus, this one has coilovers, a catback exhaust, and a couple other goodies that in my opinion only supplement the driving experience. And even though it isn't completely OEM in stock, it is actually what I would consider one of the most stock examples I could find for a car coming from the 90s. And that's it. Let us know down below what you like about the R32 GTR. And are you shopping for one? I am. If you like the video, give it a like, and consider giving us a subscription, and turn on that little notification bell so you know when all of our videos drop. And as always, keep living the ideal lifestyle.